It's 3 minutes past 8. You're listening to LBC. I'm Ian Dale. I don't know what we should call this hour. Should we call it Talk to a Trade Unionist? Call me Dave, maybe? Oh, no, that was another Dave, though, wasn't it? Maybe one that Dave Ward doesn't want to be associated with too much. No. Dave Ward, in case you missed his last appearance on the programme a few weeks ago, is General Secretary of the Communication Workers Union. And we've invited him back because we got really good feedback from the programme last time. And I think that more generally, we should be talking about issues that matter to trade unions, matter to trade unionists, because a lot of you listening to this programme will be trade unionists. Now, this is not going to be an hour's love-in. I want to hear from you from all shades of political opinion, all shades of trade union opinion as well, because we talked a bit about this last time, didn't we, Dave, that sort of not every trade unionist votes the same way, and you represent everyone, no matter who they vote for. So the lines are open now, 0345 6060973. I guess it's also a chance for CWU members to hold you to account for all the nefarious activities that you get up to.
I'm sure there'll be a few of them ringing.
You can watch us also, if you don't just want to hear the sound of our voices, you can watch us on the LBC Facebook page, the LBC Twitter feed, and I think the LBC website as well at lbc.co.uk. Now, before we get to the calls, let's have a little word about the budget yesterday. Was there anything good in it from your members' point of view?
Well, it's very difficult to analyse a budget. I was talking to one of my friends earlier on, and he said his mum used to say, you woke up the following day after a budget and nothing ever changed. And I think that's the feeling that most people will have, because I think some of the problems in the UK are so deep-rooted that there's no individual budget that's going to change things. The headline figure I saw today, I'm not an economist, but I saw the figure that said the top 10% might be £400 better off and the bottom 10% £30 better off. And I think that sums up really what budgets ultimately do. They rob Peter to pay Paul. And unfortunately, we've got to have a real change in the country, in my view. And it's going to be a bigger change than anything that an individual budget can do from the Tory party.
John McDonnell's in a bit of trouble this evening. I don't know what you think about this, but he suggested that the Labour Party is going to support all of the tax threshold changes, so effectively support the tax cuts in the budget. He's come under fire, believe it or not, from the right of the party. Andy Burnham has written a fairly critical article on it, saying it reminds him, do you remember when Ed Miliband resigned as leader and Harriet Harman was the acting leader of the Labour Party, and she said that they should support the government's welfare changes, and Andy Burnham went along with that, and that was the end of his leadership bid. So I think he's sort of feeling a little bit of Schadenfreude here. What's your view?
Well, I'm not sure Andy is on the right of the party. I think Andy has shown in Manchester that he's doing a good job. I think he's leading real change. No, I think he's leading real change. I know he's very committed to that. I think he's wrong, though, to criticise John. I hadn't seen the criticism. Because you're in that moment in politics where, at the end of the day, if somebody says we're going to raise the tax allowance by X, what are you supposed to say? Well, you don't want to do it at all? You have to be realistic about the reality of a budget and what can be achieved from it. And like I said earlier on, I don't believe that the budget makes a huge difference. What's going to make the difference is whether or not Labour can get a chance to implement their wider transformative programme for this country. And, what I'd say to people about the budget is, or let's be honest, Andy and any other people on the right of the Labour Party is, where's your solutions then? What are your solutions? That's what people want to hear. And one of the problems that the right of the Labour Party have is that when they were in power, they didn't offer any of the solutions that Jeremy is now putting forward and John McDonnell putting forward for wider society. And I think the only policy I can remember they had was don't vote for Jeremy. This is the context you've got to see it in. You can't just pick a day and a moment and think you're going to change the world.
I understand the cynicism about budgets, because I think generally people think, well, what he gives with one hand he takes back
it away
on the
other.
other.
Of course they do.
But for many people there will be significant changes. Apparently if you're a single parent working 25 hours a week on universal credit, you're going to be £890 a year better off. Now, that's serious money by anybody's standards, isn't it?
Well, let's be honest, I think Labour should take the credit for that, because what you're seeing is the Tories making a complete mess of universal credit and the rollout of it, and then having to get the situation back by putting extra money in. Well, that's come as a direct result of the pressure that people like John McDonnell have put on the Tory party. So you don't then turn around and say that's a bad thing. That's a good thing. But it's not enough, is it?
But nothing ever is it? That's the problem. And you will have a lot of people saying, well, here we go again. Left-wing trade union leader wants to spend more money than the country can afford. No. We'd all love to give another £50 billion to the health service. We'd love to give another £50 billion to schools. But somewhere you have to draw a line, don't you?
Ian, I think it takes a much deeper change. And I think this debate about how much have we got, how much can we afford, let's go back in time. We turn the clocks back on Sunday an hour. Perhaps we should turn them back to 1945 and get the spirit of 1945 back. I'm suggesting it now because the country in 1945 was skint after the Second World War. But there was a will in the country to stand up for people. People came together, communities came together. We knew we had to, I wasn't around at that time, but that we built the NHS at that moment. We built public housing at that moment. And the country had no money. So, I think it's a bit defeatist, some of this debate about, how much does it cost? It's like, it's not giving confidence to working people to believe that you can change things. And you can change things,
but it's not just voters that have to have confidence in a political party to deliver on its promises. It's also got to be the financial markets, because if the financial markets run scared, we all know the consequences of that, and nobody wants to see that happen.
Well, we've already seen what happens with the financial markets.
Exactly.
A decade ago, they got it wrong and working people paid the price for it. So, for me, I don't buy any of that stuff. I think you've got to recognise that if you want to bring about change, you've got to challenge the levers of power, the levers of wealth. There's no other way of doing it. That's how you afford it. You put money into the economy, you borrow money to get the economy moving again, the infrastructure of the country again. There's no way out of it. History has proven that. You don't change things by just keep cutting things.
We are now spending more on interest payments than we do on education. Now, what are you suggesting? John McDonnell is suggesting we should effectively borrow another £500 billion. Now, think of the extra interest on that. In the end, that interest has to be paid, doesn't it?
Yeah, but let's look at that in the context of people who buy their house. Yeah, we're not talking about borrowing money here to have a party, are we? We're not talking about borrowing money to go on holiday. We're talking about borrowing money to rebuild Britain. And that is worth doing. We're talking about saying, let's bring our assets back. Royal Mail, renationalisation, RAL, the utilities. They are assets that we had in this country that we could have, with a change in the world of work, with a stake for workers in those assets, we could have rebuilt Britain. That's what Labour are offering. They're offering a completely different vision of the future. And to keep, sort of starting from the point of, well, how much does it afford? Can we afford this? Well, of course you can afford it if you want.
Well,
and let's be honest, the current system has failed.
What you're suggesting is that you want to max out the country's credit card. Now, in your household, if you did that in the long term, you wouldn't have a house, would you?
No, I'm not saying that you max it out. I'm saying that you can borrow money at the moment. A government can borrow money at very good interest rates, and they should be doing that for the interests of the whole of the country. And had we been doing that earlier rather than carrying on cutting things back, we wouldn't be in the position we're in now.
But do you think this is a sellable message to the electorate? Because a lot of people will think, well, hang on a minute, I know what happens if I spend more money than I can afford. And I think you look back at the last 10 years and people, whatever they think of austerity, there is a basic understanding that if you keep spending more than you can afford, you're going to have to pay for it in the long term.
And
it will be poorer people that pay for it in the long term.
The sellable message, Ian, is that the system of marketisation, of privatisation, has failed people in this country. People who think you can just let the free market carry on and somehow we all benefit from it, that's gone. And it is time for a change in how you look at the economy. It's time to rebuild. And a country like Britain can, if it's willing to take back its assets, it can create the platform to rebuild Britain.
But you say take back its assets. Well, they're not its assets any longer, are they? These organisations have been privatised. Are you suggesting that these assets should be taken back with no compensation?
No, I think Labour are offering a bond scheme. Which they can offer,
which they can't give any details on, and they say, "Well, Parliament will decide what the rate is." Well, that's a cop out, because we all know in the end, if Labour has a majority, Parliament can decide to give no compensation whatsoever.
Look, the day that we take back the assets that we should be owning anyway will be a great day for this country. Let's take back control of water. Let's take back control of railways. Let's take back control of the mail. Let's then invest in the workers in those companies to help rebuild our communities and rebuild Britain. That's the vision that Labour are offering.
You know why those companies or the organisations were privatised in the first place. They were either losing massive amounts of money, they either weren't getting the investment that they needed from the taxpayer, and that's why they were privatised. And I mean, I don't sense a clamour in the country for, maybe on the railways you might be right, but on water, I don't sense a clamour for renationalisation of water.
I don't agree with you that they were in a state where we just had to get rid of them and they were basket cases. You know, we created...
the steel industry was, the railway industry was.
The privateers, the spivs, as they like to call it, all of the hedge funds who have enormous power over the world's finances, all of those corporations, they were the ones that created the circumstances for cashing in and taking away things that we owned as a country. And if you look, I can talk about Royal Mail with some expertise, because you should look back at what they said. And at the time, when it started off, it was Peter Mandelson who started saying it. It's a basket case. And I remember them saying, if we privatise it, there's a few things will definitely happen. One, we'll be able to invest in it. Well, they've taken £1 billion out of it. They haven't invested in it. And they've given it back to those hedge funds to make more money. The same people who robbed it when got in there quick, made a killing when it was sold dirt cheap. They said, we're going to innovate services. Go and talk to postal workers about whether privatisation has brought innovation. No, it hasn't. None of the things, there was a report an independent report headed up by a guy called Hooper, sponsored initially by the Labour Party, sponsored by the coalition government. This was going to be the answer. I'd like anyone to look at the recommendations in that report and tell us if any of that has actually happened. And the answer is none of it has happened, because leading into that, we had liberalisation of postal services, where if you was a company in Europe, you could come into the UK, you could choose, you didn't have to do a universal service, you could undercut the main service by saying, well, I'll only deliver in these big cities, and I'll only deliver at this time, and I'll only deliver that. And we had to pay the price for that, and then we get told we're a basket case. It's a free card trick. They set it up, they create the circumstances where the wealthy get wealthier. And we're saying it's time for a change.
Do you accept, just before we have to go to a break in a second, but do you accept that there are companies that were privatised that actually have been successful and you wouldn't want to return to the private sector? I mean, for example, British Telecom, I would argue. I mean, are you suggesting that should go back to the public sector? British Airways, British airports?
Look, I think there's an interesting debate about British Telecom. We happen to represent members in BT, in Openreach. What about broadband? Do you think we should have a monopoly that delivers the service so that the whole of the country have the same level of service?
Don't get me started on that. Nationalise the whole thing, as far as I'm concerned.
I don't agree with you. I think you can look at broadband and you can start to say, should that be a monopoly? And if so, how are we going to create the service standards? And I think it needs new models of ownership. So I'm not suggesting that you just go back to how it was. I mean, look, let's be honest. When Royal Mail was in government hands, there were times when, to be honest with you, they didn't invest in it as a government. And that's the problem. But I do believe that new models of ownership are the answer. Give workers a stake in their companies. Give them a pride in seeing their company innovate, be part of that. They know better than anybody.
That's actually what privatisation did initially.
Where?
In the 1980s. If you look at all the privatisations in the 1980s, whether it's British Gas, whatever, workers were either given free shares or given discounted shares. Now, admittedly, most people then sold them very quickly.
But that's the story of privatisation, that people... You can't blame workers for doing that, by the way. I never blame workers.
I'm not.
For no, and I know you wasn't in, but I don't blame workers, even their own members. I remember a campaign years ago where I think it was BT when that was being run, and we said, like, don't take the shares. The union at that time said, people are not going to take free shares.
Oh, of course.
Ordinary workers. But the point is, at the first opportunity to sell them, they'll sell them because they need the cash. Who buys them? The same group. So you end up with the same small,
you're right,
wealthy people
you're
holding
right. But if you don't allow people to sell shares when they want to sell them, owning shares means nothing.
Well, look, it's not about... You can come up with better schemes that buy workers into a stake in their company. You can come up with better schemes that give workers a real say in how they manage their company, where their companies invest, and you would get a greater feeling across this country that the world of work is starting to change.
OK, well, in fact, let's take some calls on the world of work in a moment. 0345 6060 973. We have plenty of calls on the board already, but several spaces free if you'd like to talk to Dave Ward, the General Secretary of the Communication Workers Union. It's 19 minutes past 8.
This is LBC.
Word in the woods is that 3 little pigs are looking to sell their homes quick. They seem to be in a spot of bother with the big bad wolf called Rick.
Come out, little piggies!
So they spoke to the friendly team at Property Rescue, who can offer a guaranteed sale in as little as 48 hours at a fair price and a cash advance if you need one. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to sold.
For hundreds of years, Indian food has been about sharing great food with the people you love. For over 5 years, Manjal Restaurant have brought North and South India together in the heart of London. And due to its success, now we've come to Chigwell Loughton. Experience the essence of India and make memories with Manjal. Book now at manjalrestaurant.com.
Alicia, give me some ideas for men's gifts.
The most popular men's gifts are beard trimmers, beard oil, beard mist, beard wax, beard rollers, beard balm, an e-beard, beard spray, beard dye.
For those that don't do the expected, the Jaguar F-Pace, a performance SUV with the DNA of a sports car. Jaguar, a breed apart.
Ah, the great British roast. Where mobiles are set aside, the TV goes off, the family comes together, and everything stops. For the perfect roast, only Bisto Best Gravy will do. Made with real meat juices for that authentic, rich roasted flavour. Ah, Bisto.
Hey, you're home. How's the cold been?
Actually, after a day of meetings, working through lunch, running a full press conference, and a delayed train home, it wasn't that bad.
Wow.
I know. I had Lemsip by my side.
When cold, flu and chesty cough strikes, keep Lemsip Max all-in-one by your side. There's nothing faster or stronger. Lemsip, there for you. Contains paracetamol. Always read the label.
Finance for Business is the finance broker you can depend on. Their team of professionals can help you secure bridging finance, development finance, and commercial mortgages. Working with hundreds of lenders, they'll help you select the right solution for your project and stay from the start to the end and beyond. Finance for Business, because broking is the new banking. Visit award-winningfinance.com.
Inspiration for bouquets comes from all over the place. From going to an art gallery, it can be from a book cover.
Zingflowers.com. Amazing every time.
Leading Britain's conversation. Ian Dale. Tweet at LBC.
It's 8:22 here on LBC. Someone has texted in. Last Tuesday, we had that awful journalist. I think they mean Yasmin Alibhai-Brown. Now we've got this Bob Crow wannabe. Come on, LBC. Is it now Lefty Tuesday? Oh. So we're now being accused of left-wing bias. You can't win, can you, Dave? Dave Ward is here, General Secretary of the Communication Workers Union. 0345 6060 973. Stevie in Motherwell says, typical Ian Dale wants the rich elite top 1% to own all of the UK's wealth. Have I ever said that? It's not what I believe. I genuinely don't believe that. He says the UK has the lowest GDP in Europe. Again, simply not true. You look at read Liam Halligan's article in the Telegraph for the truth on that. I think you actually mean the lowest growth, but we don't even have that. In the G7, I think we're number 5 now, and we're certainly not the lowest in Europe. I think it's high time we went to the calls. Don't forget, you can watch us live on lbc.co.uk, the LBC Twitter feed at LBC, or the LBC Facebook page. David is in Uxbridge. Hello, David.
Yeah, hi Ian. Yeah, I'd like to put to Dave the thought of, given the real structural inequalities in the British economy, and that our 5 big banks really own 95% of their lending only goes to buying up property and stocks. And how would we, would he be in favour of breaking up the banks, creating regional banks that invest in productive activity that's going to get our economy growing rather than financial speculation? Because I think that's the key to getting the British economy away from a bloated financial sector that only enriches the 1% and get us into developing into education, science, technology, decarbonising our economy, making the real, addressing inequality. What do you think? Because I think you've got to take on the banks to get lending into the right places, because lending is in all the wrong places in the lopsided British economy. Just to see what his thoughts are on that idea.
Well, David, I would be in favour of it, and actually I'd put forward that the Post Office could be one of those banks. It could partner other banks, it could be on the high street, it could be part of the solution in supporting local businesses. I think we could come up with some very innovative ways of creating banks that are all about ending financial exclusion for many people who can't get access to the current banking system, but more importantly in this way, for rebuilding local towns, local cities and regions of the country that have been abandoned. And we've long held the view that a post bank could be part of that, and I know that Labour are committed to building regional infrastructure banks. I'm not a banking expert, but what I do know is that you've got to change the existing system. You've got to open up those places. I mean, isn't it funny how all the things that we say have got to be opened up are all the things that the public own? And when it comes to things like banks, where we could do a better job in the interest of the whole of the country and regionalise it, people don't want to sort of really go there. So I think it's time to change the banking systems in this country, and I'd like to see the Post Office become a post bank.
Well, I rather agree with you, because on the basis that I think the public has lost trust in the banking system. It's lost trust in the big 4 banks anyway.
Yeah.
And also, unlike in the energy market, where I think there is now some sort of genuine competition, in the banking sector you have these challenger banks, but they haven't really broken through to any great extent. I've just invested a relatively small amount of money in a new business, and it's taken a month to get the bank account open. Now, nobody's telling me that it should take a month to get a bank account open, and that has actually held back the development of this business. It's held back employing somebody as well. And I think the banks have got to be held accountable for how they treat small businesses, because they're certainly not as supportive as they were when I first started operating a small business in the early 1990s.
I think we should have banks that are devoted to helping grow small businesses. I think we should invest in those banks. I think we should put them out into every high street. Every town, every city should have its own kind of way of developing small businesses, and a bank plays a vital role in that.
David, was it reaction from you?
Yeah, well, I agree, because I think, they talk about the UK economy having a productivity puzzle. For me, I don't think it's a puzzle. I think the puzzle, the problem is that our bank, business investment is notoriously poor. The banks go for the easy money of buying up property, buying up stocks, share buybacks, and it's that sort of financialisation, which up until the financial crash, it kind of served Britain well. But then now that doesn't. Well, it served a certain part of Britain, but it was popped, like working people were popped up with tax credits and all that, but austerity's put paid to that. So we have to, make these hard decisions to wean the British economy off a bloated financial sector, and and start making these really good, decisions to invest in local economies. And like, if you look at the German economy, I know there's problems, but they have like hundreds of banks. We only have 4, and they're all based in the local communities, so they know what people need, and they invest in local businesses. And I think that's what we should try and do.
I think you should be the bank manager in Uxbridge, David.
Sarah she's texted in about employee share ownership. She says, many companies offer employee share schemes, easy, tax-efficient ways for employees to buy shares in their company, save as you earn and share incentive plans. These plans have enabled employees to share in the success of their companies. In 2014, BT employees shared in a £1.3 billion windfall. Many employees remain shareholders in their companies, making the point that not everybody sells
No,
the
not
shares.
Everybody sells, but does it actually change the power of levers of the company? So what I'd like to see is not just about shares, it's about changing the makeup of the boards of the company. And I'm not talking about just the top board of a company, because many times that's just a rubber stamping exercise. I'm talking about the boards that really get to grips with the nitty-gritty of operating a business. And workers should be on those boards. Workers should be on investment boards. Companies, big companies, obviously, should be set up on the basis that it understands what the needs of a regional economy are.
How do you define a worker? Because a lot of the people that are on boards will say, hang on a minute, I work.
I'm talking about in the context of the listener who rang in there, or sorry, didn't ring in, has said to you that, that there are other schemes that operate in the UK. And I suppose that's big companies in reality. She's talking about BT there as a particular company. So, yeah, I accept that not everybody sells their shares, but I think what we've got to do in this country is create levers of power for the workforce.
Well, just before we go to the news, I always like to finish on a high note. Steve in London says, like most sensible people, I'm tuning to another radio station when that union leader comes on. All unions should be banned. Well, it's a point of view, I suppose.
It is a point of view, but maybe you should tune to another station. I'll follow him there.
Oh dear, oh dear. Anyway, more of your calls in a moment. 0345 6060 973. Dave Ward is here with me until 9. He's the General Secretary of the Communication Workers Union. After 9, we're going to be talking about veganism. Ever fancy being a vegan, Dave?
No, not really, no.
Good man. It's 8:30.
Not.
It's 8:30. Let's get the news headlines with Rachel Gerrish.
Senior economists have suggested public services like schools and councils should get ready for more difficult years ahead following yesterday's budget from the Chancellor. Billions of spending was announced for things like the NHS, but the Institute for Fiscal Studies says Philip Hammond's taken a gamble. He could be backed into a corner if economic forecasts change. A father's been jailed for a minimum of 24 years for beating his 2-year-old son to death in Northampton. Dylan Tiffin-Brown died after he was assaulted last December. Detectives investigating one of the UK's most high-profile disappearances are digging up a garden in the West Midlands. Estate agent Susie Lamplugh vanished 32 years ago. She's thought to have been murdered. LBC weather, clear spells across eastern and central areas tonight. Cloudier in Wales, the northwest and Scotland, a low of 0. Tomorrow, drier and brighter for most, but some rain further north. Warming up a little, a high of 14 degrees.
This is LBC.
I'm a great white shark and I'm come to eat your car.
Oh no, please don't eat me.
I'm come to get you.
Invest time playing with the kids, as Money Farm is here to look after your other life investments. From pensions to ISAs and more, we offer investment advice and manage everything on your behalf. You only need 10 minutes to get set up. You have one life. Invest wisely. Moneyfarm.com. Your capital is at risk. Money Farm is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority.
That laundrette at the nudist colony, a VHS revival, and the vineyard in Saudi Arabia. There are smarter ways to invest. At British Pearl, we've revolutionised property investment. Find expertly selected opportunities and build your portfolio in an instant. Join now at britishpearl.com, the smarter way to invest in property. Capital at risk. Minimum investment applies. Authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority.
Clear a room, clear a loft, clear a garden, or clear a whole house. With Clearabee, you can do it quickly, easily and affordably. Choose our man and van rubbish removal service and we'll clear your rubbish for you. Or choose one of our B-bag skip bags, which you can place almost anywhere, fill with almost any kind of rubbish and have it collected the same day. The choice is yours. Book now at clearabee.co.uk.
Clear rubbish easily. Clearabee.
Ah, the great British roast. where mobiles are set aside, the TV goes off, the family comes together, and everything stops. For the perfect roast, only Bisto Best Gravy will do. Made with real meat juices for that authentic, rich roasted flavour. Ah, Bisto.
When you build your own website with GoDaddy Website Builder, you've got all the tools you need to make your idea real and get yourself noticed. Improve your rank on search engines, reach out to your customers with email marketing, take online appointments, boost your social media presence. And best of all, you can build and edit your site from any device, which means wherever you are right now, you could also be building your website and making your own way. Unless you're driving, in which case you should pull over first. Try Website Builder for free at godaddy.co.uk.
If you're collecting your prescription, don't assume you can claim it for free. Not all benefits entitle you to free prescriptions. And if you claim when you're not entitled, you could face a penalty charge of up to £100. Thankfully, there's a simple way to find out if you should be paying. Search Check Before You Tick online and use our eligibility checker to find out if your benefits mean you can claim for free. Or you can ask your pharmacy team. So always remember to check before you tick. This was brought to you by the NHS.
I was really happy to have my wife at home where she wanted to be for her last days, but it was a struggle, especially at night. I didn't sleep until the Marie Curie nurses came. They didn't just take care of her, they cared for the family too. They even had a cup of tea ready for me in the morning. Well, it meant I could get proper rest so Brenda and I could enjoy our time together. We've been married 49 years.
The right care means everything to families living with a terminal illness. With your support, Marie Curie nurses can be there for more families like Brenda's. Search Marie Curie to learn more.
This is LBC with Ian Dale. Call 0345 6060 973.
8:34. You know what they say, beware of a trade union leader bearing gifts. Well, if you're watching on Facebook or the LBC Twitter feed or the LBC website, you will see the gift that Dave Ward has kindly brought me. I thought it was a Make America Great baseball cap, but what does it say on the front?
It says, make the post public again.
See, I am wearing it. Obviously, I don't necessarily believe that because I remain strictly impartial at all times.
You asked us to bring it in.
I did not. Anyway, let's go back to your text, tweets and calls. Gary in Muswell Hill says, if I start a business, what right do workers have to have a seat on my board? I'm paying them to do a job, not to tell me how to run my business. If they don't like working for me, they can, well, I won't say the word, but they can go away and work for somebody else or start their own business. There is a certain logic to that, isn't there?
Not really, no, because, that fella, he ain't going to have a very good business if he treats his workers like that.
But he would say if he was investing his own money in his own business, why should he be dictated to by other people as to how to run it?
Look, I think we all know that we recognise there are smaller businesses and they will always operate in a different way. Not like that fella's talking there, but, they will obviously do things differently. We're talking about some of the larger businesses, some of the bigger industries.
What qualifies as a larger business?
Well, there's often a figure quoted above 250 employees, and I think that's probably the range that you're talking about, where we need to completely change the model of our company operates. I think that's a fair kind of range.
Let's go to Andy in Enfield. Andy, what would you like to say?
Oh, hello. Mr. Ward, I'm one of your members.
Yeah.
I think you can call him Dave.
Oh, Dave, sorry. Yeah, in my firm, roughly 2/3 are members, 1/3 are not. Now, us members, we pay our £10 a month, and our shop steward negotiates our wage increase, benefits and all that. But those that are not in the union, they get the same benefit, the same wage increase, and it's so unfair.
Well, you have a point. I mean, our membership density is up amongst the highest in the UK in Royal Mail. You may say 1/3, and there'll be different levels of that, but we're up at about 90% of membership across Royal Mail. And Andy, you've got a fair point. One of the ways to deal with that, let's get some of our reps to come down there and let's have a meeting with the staff there, and we'll explain the very point you make. Because it's only by the collective coming together of all the workers that enables us to be able to negotiate some of the pay deals. And as you know, Andy, through all the periods of where pay was stagnating, we've had a pay rise every single year. And that's because of the strength of the workplace and the strength of the union membership. So we need to do something about that. Maybe you'll contact me let me know the office, and we'll get a few guys down and have a good meeting with the others in.
Do you think some form of the closed shop ought to be brought back, Andy?
Of course. Why should members that pay their dues get the wage increase, and those that don't get the very same wage increase and benefits?
On the other hand, why should someone be forced to join a union if they don't want to?
Yeah, but why should they take the increase if they don't pay the dues?
Well, we could answer all of our questions with other questions, couldn't we?
I think there's an halfway house, which is if you actually sat down and we had a proper discussion, and sometimes, unfortunately, we don't do that, and really explained the situation as Andy's just put it, and explained how it benefits people, I think you would convince a lot of those people to join up in the union.
Would you argue that a future Labour government should bring back the closed shop?
I'm not actually saying that we should bring back the closed shop, because I do think there was a moment where unions have got to earn, the right to get amongst the membership again. I think one of the things that struck me about that, a different era, was that perhaps it got a bit easy for us. You made a point earlier on, Ian, that when we were talking outside, that sometimes, we've got to reach out to people as well. And I think that, I'm up for that challenge. I'm up for going to any workplace.
More carrotless stick.
Yeah, I'm going up for any workplace. I'm up for going to any workplace and talking to workers there and explaining the benefits of trade unions, and I think people will join.
Isn't it? It's about marketing, isn't it? You've got to sell what you can do for somebody.
It's about delivering decent pay terms and conditions.
If you've got proof that you've done that in workplaces all over the country, and you go and make your case, you are effectively selling your wares. You want someone to pay you per month to do that on their behalf, and if you can make a convincing case, well, fantastic. Nobody's going to argue against that.
I would say it's about engagement as well. I think that unions have got to learn how to re-engage with people. We're fortunate that in the CWU, we do pride ourselves on being a very workplace orientated union. We have a rep structure where, we try to get reps in every single workplace, and they have power. They are not there just to make the numbers up. They can absolutely influence what goes on with the support of their members. It's always about, can you get everybody to get behind the union itself? And then you can make a difference.
Andy, thank you very much for that. David's in Doncaster. Hello, David.
Hi, I just wanted to ask you a question. Is it Dave? Why is it you're so adversarial left and right, in the sense of you're always on the left, and I get that, but you do know that it puts people off? And just to let you know, my father was a member of the communications worker union historically, and it's a brilliant union. But you need to pitch what you're doing well, rather than, do you know what I mean? This thing of fighting the man, if you get my point. Because it's getting old and it's not working. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a nurse, and I run a business now, changed careers. And to be honest with you, you should be pitching the facts and figures. Because the figures are, if you get salaries up, we reduce working tax credits, we get people off the government paying for them, and private business becomes capitalist again. And you don't pitch that as a union, and none of the unions do. And it really upsets me, because it's a good pitch you'd have, but you get into this whole thing, you've got to be on the left basically to be in the union, and that's just rubbish.
I'm not sure, David. I think it was another David. Lots of Davids tonight. I'm not sure, David, that's how we would do it. Well, I know we don't do it that way. I do understand the point you're making. Can I kind of counter that by saying I think sometimes the media want to create that debate, that we're all people that...
David, because the reality is, it's not the media. You've spent, and I support you, I'm a supporter, I employ staff, I believe in paying people decently, because I want people to earn enough money to pay taxes for services. That's how I roll in that sense. I want that. I'm a supporter of you. But you were dismissive of the other guy rather than being respectful, who texted in, and my point is, you'll get further by giving facts and statistics. So when my father worked in Mount Pleasant, which is the post office, I'm sure you know where I mean.
I know it well.
He never had to claim benefit because he was earning over 30 grand a year. While if you go now, people are on lower grades, they're coming in at lower grades, it's harder to get up the system. We all know that, and you should be pitching that, because actually, as a taxpayer, I don't want companies like Royal Mail, Amazon and all that taking tax credits. But you guys don't pitch that. What you pitch about is fighting for, we want to go back to the 70s, we want to fight the man. And that's, in essence, never going to win me over. If you give me stats, that will win me over, because I know that unions are actually in this country's best interests.
David, I doff my cap to you.
Look, let me say this. The reason I said what I said about the other guy who texted in is I heard the whole of the text. Ian was a bit gentle there. He didn't read it out because he couldn't.
It doesn't
and if
matter,
you'd have heard, but let me make this point to you. I am not saying that to be a trade unionist you have to support the Labour Party. Am I going to try and encourage people to go down that direction? Yes. But let me say, I always start with this point. Trade unions are there to improve the terms and conditions of workers. And you are absolutely right. We do some great things, and sometimes we don't tell that story enough. Because if we did, I'm sure that more and more people would join trade unions. But, you know, you can't get away from the fact that there are certain things that happen politically that affect our ability to be able to deliver good terms and conditions, and that's where the politics does come in.
OK, David, thank you very much for that. Chief executive pay, I think, is a bit of a bugbear of yours at the moment.
Well, it's the whole culture of work. Let me tell you this very true story. So some years back, there was a business leader who's seen to be one of the best business people in the UK, who came to the Royal Mail as a CEO. And when he came to Royal Mail, he said, Royal Mail's losing £1 million a day. And I said to one of my friends, I said, when he leaves in about 4 or 5 years' time, he's going to say Royal Mail is making now £1 million a day. Lo and behold, the same guy who's very good in the media in the sense of he writes his own stories, I think, creates his own kind of PR. He was a PR expert. That's exactly what he said when he left the company. But here's the problem. 2 weeks later, a new CEO come in. I met her, and she said to me, "We're bankrupt." Now she's gone. She took a £1 million golden goodbye, and the new guy they've just brought in, he's been given a £6 million golden hello. By the way, he works for the company. He works internationally for the company, and they've made him up to the CEO, a fella called Rico Back. He may be a decent fella, but that's what's wrong. It's the culture. And I add to that this point that I think today CEOs have lost their way in the world of business. And it's become about them. It's become about hitting numbers. It's not become about creating businesses where everybody benefits and society benefits.
And it's also very short-termist.
It's very short-termist. You know, I use this phrase, which I say a lot. CEOs, I mean, here's the thing, right? Why is it that if you're a CEO of a company and a new one comes in, the whole sort of buzz around the leadership of that company is, we've got to pay top dollar to get the best? When it comes to the workforce, the same people say, well, it don't matter what we pay there, we can pay anyone, we can get anybody. That is a cultural thing that is wrong in this country, in the world of work, and we've got to change it.
I'm in complete agreement with you on that, because I think some of these CEOs I can't remember which company it was, but I saw a guy being interviewed on television the other day. Can anyone remember who it was? £75 million bonus, and he wasn't willing to justify it on camera. And his PR guy tried to get the interviewer to stop talking, to stop asking questions. And it was Jeff Fairburn. Where's he from? Persimmon, that's it. One of the house builders. Now, I'm sorry, but if you can't justify your bonus in front of a camera to the general public, to your shareholders, to people who buy your houses, don't take the bonus, mate.
See, they don't grow things anymore. Businesses. We celebrate business leaders in this country.
Well, that company does. It builds houses.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about we don't grow things that are a benefit to society. Whatever you thought of the old industrialists years ago, Henry Ford, people like that, they made things, and other people benefited from that. They got jobs, they got cars, and society moves on. Today, we celebrate business people in the UK if they break things up, and we say, what a great business person that is. I'm saying, I'm not envious of people's money, although I think some of the pay that people get is outrageous.
You should see what I get paid.
You don't get a £6 million for moving one job to the other.
No,
one different.
Do you know
shift?
when I moved from Drive to the evenings? Do you know how much I got?
No, yeah.
Sweet FA.
Well, join a union. I've got the membership form here, and we'll get in negotiating for you. You don't need that.
Well, there you go. I think I'm quite a good negotiator, but less of that. Right, Dave, we will take more calls in a moment. 0345 6060 973. We've had a lot of common ground this evening. I think we need to mix it up in the last 10 minutes or so. It's 8:47.
Eddie Mair, weekdays from 4 p.m. on LBC.
Isn't it still good it's going into schools than somewhere else?
This is the salt in the wound announcement.
Why is there salt in the wound?
We've got a recruitment and retention crisis. This small amount of money won't solve that.
They're not pretending it's going to solve that.
The crumbling school infrastructure.
This money, however little, isn't at least something encouraging.
No.
So you'd rather this money wasn't going to school?
Eddie Mair, weekdays from 4 p.m.
With which impartial advice, investigations and reviews. Keep questioning.
LBC.
Kids. The older they get, the trickier it can be to find the perfect gift. But by giving NS&I premium bonds, you can give them opportunity. With premium bonds, your child or grandchild can win tax-free prizes up to £1 million. And because we're backed by HM Treasury, every penny you invest stays 100% secure.
Wow!
So for a gift your little ones will appreciate even when they're not so little, give them premium bonds at nsandI.com. NS&I. Safer savings set you free.
Disaster can strike in the blink of an eye. Now it's all about damage limitation and having a response team that can act fast. Ideal Response can be on site within 2 hours, working 24/7 to ensure damage caused by flooding, burst pipes, even sewage is kept to a minimum. Ideal Response, the 24-hour damage restoration and specialist hygiene service. Our business is restoring yours.
Universal Credit is opening up work for thousands of people across the country. It provides support for people out of work or who start on a low income and comes with your own work coach to provide help and advice. Universal Credit can top up your wages and payments won't stop just because you work more than 16 hours. So it can open up lots more job opportunities and makes temporary or part-time work a great place to start. Universal Credit. Opening up work. Find out more at gov.uk/openingupwork.
For the box set bingers, for the selfie queens and gaming machines, for streaming new music or Skyping old friends, racking up views, online shopping for shoes or checking the news, for the revisers, watching it livers and out-of-office thrivers, for the up-all-nighters and online fighters, for everyone who wants fairer broadband. Choose TalkTalk today and enjoy 30% off our unlimited fibre, all with our promise of no mid-contract price rises and our 30-day great connection guarantee. TalkTalk, fairer broadband for everyone. Offer ends 1st of November, 24-month contract and free setup. T's and C's apply.
He's on the home stretch. Wait, he's stopped. Extraordinary. He's having a picnic on the side of the track.
Is keeping on track of your investments putting you in a tailspin? Money Farm offer investment advice and manage everything on your behalf, even the transfer of old pensions and ISAs. It takes just 10 minutes to set up and our investment consultants can answer any questions. You have one life. Invest wisely. Moneyfarm.com. Your capital is at risk. Money Farm is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority.
Ah, the great British roast. Where mobiles are set aside, the TV goes off, the family comes together, and everything stops. For the perfect roast, only Bisto Best Gravy will do. Made with real meat juices for that authentic, rich roasted flavour. Ah, Bisto.
Ian Dale on LBC.
It's 8:51 here on LBC. Dave Ward is still with us, General Secretary of the Communications Workers Union. Let's go to more of your calls. Ishmael is in Muswell Hill. Ishmael, what would you like to say?
Yeah, hi Clive. Good evening.
It's actually Ian, but I'm not offended because Clive's one of my heroes.
So sorry, that was sorry about that.
Actually, Dave's a bit of a Clive Bull lookalike.
I'm really
Been
sorry
told
about
Bob Crow, Clive Bull.
What I wanted to say, to be honest, with all due respect to Dave, is my personal experience of being a union member and also being a union rep is completely different. Frankly, my latest experience was that our union was involved in some very, very serious negotiations But unfortunately, I have to say that I have absolutely no confidence in the result that they actually achieved, because they got absolutely outclassed by the HR negotiators. You know, what the company did, they went and got some PricewaterhouseCooper-like negotiators, HR people, you know, and they went in the room with our union negotiators, and they completely outclassed them. You know, they're congratulating themselves, tapping themselves on the back, but they just handed over a whole bunch of our benefits just to get a 2% pay rise. And to be honest with you, I think they were going to go for that 2% eventually anyway.
Ishmael, you make the point that sometimes you don't always get everything you want, and I don't know, obviously, the individual circumstances.
That's exactly what they said, though. You know,
yeah, but no. What I was going to go on to say is one of the benefits of being in a trade union is that you can change that situation. So, for example, you know, you've been a union rep. It sounded like you still are. I'm not sure what the business is and what the circumstances are, but I would encourage you to challenge. To go to the membership, to have a debate within your workplace, and to say, well, that ain't good enough. And I think that you know that's the beauty of a trade union. An active trade union in the workplace is where the reps also get challenged. The whole union leadership gets challenged sometimes, and you have to be able to account. And maybe you should be doing that.
Ishmael, thank you very much. Sarah's in Milton Keynes. Hi, Sarah.
Hello. Yeah. I was only the question I was going to say, because I've been in sort of construction industry. It's persimmon, by the way. I heard you say it. It's not tasty. Anyway.
Oh, did I pronounce it wrong? Sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. I'm just saying. It's just, I mean, I started when I was in my late teens. I used to work for the railways, and I was in a union. In fact, when I joined, they said, even the management said, get in the union. So I was in TESA and I was in the NUR. And that's sort of public work, working for the government type thing. And that seems to be the culture. But as soon as you go to like PLCs, I mean, I've worked for, I'm with a private company now, so it's a lot better. But when you're working for a national distributor PLC, in the contract, it says things like, we do not recognise unions. So my question would be, surely you need a bit more legislation to make it sure that employers are giving people their due rights, because I don't know, there seems when you sign your contract, you almost sign your rights away with a lot of these companies, from what I understand when I've worked for some of these big nationals.
Okay, well, we're running out of time, so if you can be a bit brief, Dave, and we can squeeze one more call in.
Sarah, you're absolutely right. We've got the worst anti-trade union laws in Western Europe, and they need to change, and they need to be fairer for workers to give them the chance to join trade unions. I couldn't agree with you more.
Lee is in Jersey. Hello, Lee. Are you there, Lee?
It's Lee from the Zone Jersey branch, so you know me. After the success of the New Deal for Workers March, has there been any progress in that? And with the 4-day working week, be going towards sort of resolving that?
I think you're asking for the listeners' benefit. The trade union movement held a big rally. If you hadn't noticed it, there was thousands of people that were there, where we're saying let's have a new deal for workers. And one of the challenges that I always put out there is a lot of talk about the problems, but the key debate is what we're going to do about it. And I think the moment is now to build on that. Is a 4-point plan. One. Unions have got to come together and agree a common bargaining agenda to tackle insecure work in the UK, to root out all of the employers who build their business models around exploiting workers. 2, we've got to cooperate more to reach out to workers who are not part of unions, particularly in the private sector. 3, we should publish a manifesto, and we're working on that, about what a new deal for workers would look like. And here's the real thing. 4, we've got to have a day of action. So like the Chancellor unveiled their budget.
Again.
No, slightly different. Hear me out. We are going to call for a day of action. It's been agreed by the TUC unanimously, every single trade union, but we're going to reach out in a different way. We're not talking about a general strike. We're talking about building real cooperation amongst workers to bring about change in the world of work. We're going to campaign for it. We're going to campaign on social media, and we're saying a day next year, probably in the middle of the year, we're going to build up to this. that every single worker in the country should be coming and joining a campaign to deliver a new deal for workers. And that action can be from one end of the scale where workers may decide that they're going to come and stand outside their workplace for a while, a couple of hours or whatever, to other workers who perhaps feel more confident that they're going to do something online. But we are going to make a difference in the world of work. We are committed to that. And my message tonight is, if the TUC don't want to call that when we've agreed it, we will call it.
4-day week. I now do a 4-day week here.
Yep.
I have to say, I've only been doing it for 8 weeks, and I have filled up that other day quite often. But it does transform your life in a way. And I come in, I don't work Fridays, so I come in on a Monday almost feeling as if I've had a mini break, a mini holiday, and it does actually refresh you. Now, I'm not saying that I think that should be that everybody should work a 4-day week, because I think people probably need to choose, and I think employers need to be a bit more flexible sometimes in what they allow people to do. And of course, then there's people say, well, if you're only working 4 days, you're going to expect the same rate of pay that you're getting for 5, which is going to cost the employers a lot of money.
This is about creating the right share out from the gig economy, the digital age, the industrial revolution, as it's called. The world of work is going to fundamentally change. It's coming down the line at a pace. AI, robotics, all the various things that are going to go on that are going to take out more and more jobs and the quality of jobs. So we should be arguing for a 4-day week in this country as a standard way of working. We should be sharing out the benefits. My point is we shouldn't be waiting for 50 years for that. We should be doing it in the next decade.
And of course, France, I think, is going down that road already, isn't it?
Well, France tends to be in front of us on stuff like this, and they'll get people behind that debate. And companies can afford this. The world can afford this if we're willing to share out the benefits of technology.
And of course, if we look back, we all thought in the early 1980s that computers were going to ruin a lot of jobs, but actually, technology has been a huge job creator. Do you think that will happen with AI?
I think workers face two futures. One is where companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, all of these high-tech companies are going to just get more and more powerful, bigger than any power that countries can have, and they're going to create the circumstances where insecure work is there for all of us, or we change that, or we come together as workers and we rightfully get a share in that technology. That's what we're going to do.
Well, Dave, it's been great to have you on for the last hour. We've got lots of calls that unfortunately we haven't been able to come to, but you will be back soon, I hope. So we'll do it all again.
All right,
that's
thanks very much.
Dave Ward from the Communication Workers Union. If you missed any...
membership for me.
I can't afford 10